Hello and welcome to the Caxton House Kitchen. I'm Diane.
And I'm Kevin.
And today we're going to show you a very basic tomato sauce recipe. And over the coming weeks we're going to introduce you to a few more easy to make, pretty cheap, pretty quick recipes that you can do at home.
These recipes are going to be really good as well because they're an alternative to buying ready-made meals as well. And these can be much more healthy too because you can control what you're putting into them and how they're cooked.
The other thing that's great about them is that we're going to go through at the end of this video the quantities that we're using, but obviously if there's something missing that you'd like, for example chilli, feel free to add it. If there's something in here that you don't like, take it out.
I mean, the great thing about making your own is that you can be creative, and it can also be a great activity for the family. So you can get the whole family involved in cooking.
Another great thing about this sauce is it's really versatile, so you can add things to it as you go along. It can be a great base, for example, of spaghetti bolognese or a ratatouille. You can add all kinds of vegetables, can't you, Kevin?
Yeah, it can be. We're going to do a vegetarian one today, but you know, you can add meat. So you could brown off some minced meat and add that if you wanted to add meat into the sauce.
So anyway, should we get started?
Okay, so we're going to look at a few of the ingredients that we're going to include in our recipe today. So firstly, starting off with one chopped onion, and I'll be showing you later how to chop an onion safely and correctly. Also with the onion, you can also get frozen onion these days. We've got two different varieties here. We've got red onion and white onion. And these are really useful for when you want to save on using vegetables. So these can be stored in the refrigerator and you can just use a little bit as you go along. So these are a really good idea. We're also going to be using tinned tomatoes today. Again, these are lovely, cheap and easy to find. But also alternatively, you could use fresh tomatoes if you wanted to, or combine the two together. As part of the tomato sauce, we'll also be using a tomato puree or sauce. And again, these can be easily found in the supermarket and come in tubes or come in these simple little containers like this.
And also in this recipe, we're going to be using fresh garlic, which I've already chopped up here. We're using 2 cloves today. But as Kev said, you can get such a good variety of frozen vegetables these days, including garlic. So if you have frozen garlic at home, feel free to use that, it works just as well. Also, today we're going to be using this kind of vegetable stock pot. But if you've got these stock cubes at home or one of these in your fridge, go for it. They all work just as well. Today we're going to be using oregano, sage and thyme, and we're using fresh bay leaves. Bay leaves have to be taken out at the end of cooking. You don't really want to eat them, they'll taste a bit foul. Any herbs that you've got at home will work perfectly well. If you've got like a mixed Italian seasoning, use that. In terms of the time you spend cooking it, we're going to cook it today for about 20 minutes, half an hour. But the longer you leave the sauce cooking, the thicker and the stronger the flavours will become. But it's perfectly safe to eat after 20 to 30 minutes.
Okay, so let's get started. Let's start by chopping that onion. Now, if you do chop too much onion, you can always freeze your onion. So put it in a container and you can store it in your freezer and it'll keep for around about 3 months. Okay, first and foremost, we're going to start by chopping an onion. An easy way and a good way to chop an onion is to avoid cutting into the root part of the onion, which is at the base of the onion. So to start, we take a knife and then slice through the onion, leaving half of the root. You can then easily take off the skin on the onion. So tear that away. And it's always a good tip to have a small bowl or a container close at hand that you can put all your debris into when you're peeling the onion. Then take your knife and take off the top of the onion, just slice it off and get rid of that. And then take your knife and just cut through, but don't cut all the way through to the root of the onion. So just do small cuts. and then turn your onion round. So this is sliced across, and then we're going to just take small cuts across the onion. And as you can see, the onion stays together and doesn't fall about everywhere. Keeping your fingers out of the way, and then the last slice, and then you can just discard that, and then you've got a nice clean chopped onion. There we go with the onion. Now over to Diane, who's going to show you how to chop some fresh garlic.
Okay, so we've got our clove of garlic here. You can use the same sort of concept as you did with the onion. So we've got the root end here, and we've got the top of the garlic here, which we take off, and that should allow for you to peel the rest of the skin of the garlic off fairly easily. Like this. So there we go. Nice and clean. And as we did with the onion, we're going to cut along the garlic up to the root, but not quite to the root. Making sure that you keep your fingers and thumbs out of the way the whole time. Once you've done that, just chop across the garlic, like so. If you've got a fine grater, you can also just grate the garlic, that works just as well. But there we go. Any large bits, you can just re-chop. There you go. One chopped garlic.
So now that we've chopped the onion and the garlic, we're going to saute them. Sauteing is basically frying off the vegetables. So get your pan nice and hot. We need to add a little bit of olive oil into the pan. Coats the bottom of the pan. And then you can add your onions in there. And add in the garlic that Diane chopped. You can add your seasoning now, so a little bit of salt, and again you can control how much salt's going in. I'd sort of say like a pinch of salt at this point. You can always add more, but you can never take it away. So a little to start off with, and then add some freshly ground pepper, or any kind of pepper would be fine to add with the vegetables. So what you want to do here is give it a good stir, and just keep stirring it, just keep your eye on it, or you get the onion and the garlic nicely softly cooked and slightly brown in colour.
Okay, and whilst your onions and garlic are frying away, stick the kettle on. This is just boiled. I'm going to pour out half a cup into here and add my stock pot. This will start dissolving it down so that it's ready to go into the tomato sauce at a later stage. At this point, I'm also going to add all of the herbs into here. Give that a little stir. Just leave it to dissolve.
Now that your onions and your garlic have been nicely sautéed, and you can see now that the colour's changed and it's got that lovely caramelised colour, we can now add the hot water and the stock cube and the mixed herbs into the pan. Sizzling away. Give that a quick stir, and then all those lovely juices will reduce down and mix together.
Okay, those onions are now ready for the tinned tomatoes. They're also ready for the bay leaves and tomato puree. So Kev's going to add the tomatoes to the pan, then I'm going to take each of the empty tins and just put a little bit of water in them to get the rest of the tomatoes out of the tin. It also helps to clean the tins up for recycling. Thank you.
There you go. So put your tomatoes in and give that a bit of a stir around, combining it with your onions and garlic. We're going to pop in a couple of bay leaves now for flavour. Again, like Diane said, we're going to take these out at the end. And then this is a really good time to add your tomato puree. So scoop it out and put it in there, and then combine everything together. So now that you've got your tomatoes in and your tomato paste, it's at this point that you could add, if you wanted to do any meat, you could add that into here if you'd already cooked off the meat. You could also add a little bit more liquid as well. You could add some more water if you think the sauce is looking a little bit thick. If you want to intensify the flavour, it's a really good idea to put a lid on this and let it simmer for around about sort of like 35 to 40 minutes. But just keep having a look at it and occasionally giving it a stir just to make sure that it's not sticking. So while the sauce is simmering, it's time to put on the water and boil up the pasta.
So to go with the tomato sauce today, we're just going to boil up some pasta. So I've got a large pan full of boiling water, which I'm going to add some salt to. It speeds up the boiling time and it also adds nice flavour, a little bit of extra flavour. Another thing you can do if you wish is to just add a tiny little drop of olive oil to the water as well. Portion sizes are approximately 1 cup per person. So today I'm going to do 2 portions. There you go. That'll come back to the boil anytime now. In terms of portion sizes for spaghetti, it's roughly about the size of a 10p piece per person. Again, if you don't eat that much, take the amount down a little. If you eat a little bit more, add a little bit more. But that's just a rough guide. Okay, so the pasta's ready now to drain and serve. This particular one has taken roughly about 12 minutes. Check the packet and it will tell you how long to boil the pasta for. What you can also do is, partway through cooking, take 1 piece of pasta out and put it on a plate and maybe cut it with a knife and see how it feels, or even have a little taste of it and to see if it's to your taste. Some people like it a little bit more al dente than others. The other thing is, we've been using dried pasta, which takes, as I said, up to 12 minutes. But if you're using fresh pasta, it takes a matter of minutes. So as I said, check the instructions on the packet before you cook it. All right, I've got a bowl underneath the sieve here, underneath the colander, because what I want to do is I want to save a little bit of that pasta water, pop back into the pasta, so that the pasta doesn't stick to itself. It's especially relevant really when you're using spaghetti, because that can kind of form together into big bunches, but it adds a little bit of flavour to the sauce anyway.
Okay, so now I've portioned off some of the sauce, and you can see in the pan now we've got like a good amount of sauce for 2 people. The bay leaves are still in the pan, so these need to be removed, so carefully pick those out and put them to one side. And then we're going to take the pasta that we've just cooked and then basically pour it into the sauce. And then you can start to move the pasta around so that everything's getting completely covered with the sauce in the pan. And a couple of minutes just kind of like moving it all around so everything's completely coated. And the nice thing about the shells we've got here, they fill up with the sauce as well, so you kind of get that lovely sort of like flavour running all the way through it. Once you're happy with it all being completely coated, you can then transfer it onto your plate. So let's put 1 portion there for 1 person. There we go. Around. And it's at this point, if you wanted, you could add some cheese. I mean, traditionally you'd use Parmesan cheese, but any kind of hard cheese could be nice, just grated on top of the pasta and the sauce. Now, the great thing about this sauce is the fact that what you don't eat, you can actually put it into your freezer and freeze it and eat it at a later date. What I like to do is get myself a freezer bag and write on what we're going to be putting into the freezer bag. So today we're going to be putting in tomato sauce. Put the day on when it was frozen, so I'd write frozen. And today is the date. And then you can roughly give yourself 2 to 3 months storage time for the sauce once it goes into the freezer. So use by date, for example. So that's 3 months' time. Now a great way to put your sauce into the freezer bag is to place the bag inside a bowl or inside a jug, and then taking your sauce, you can then put this into the bag easily. So when measuring out, this particular spoon probably measures around about 2 tablespoons. So I think you're probably looking at around about 4 tablespoons per serving per person. So just put 2 of the heat spoon loads into the bag, and then you can lift the bag out. A good way to store the bag is to squeeze out the air and then do the sealing there. Now if you've got a cloth to hand, we've got some paper towel here, you can just wipe off any excess sauce so it's nice and clean. And then that's ready to go into the freezer.
That's really good. It's good, isn't it?
Oh, really nice.